Well, Simon, it's always a great pleasure to catch up with you, and tenure review is a topic. What are your thoughts on tenure? In fact, could you explain what it really is?
Well, tenure review started 20 odd years ago, and the whole idea was the Crown was costing them $3, I think, for every dollar that they got back from rentals to administer it. And they decided that it wasn't a equitable, operation, so that they would freehold the ground that needed to be farmed, and in return, the Crown could save some of the more valuable that they perceived parts of the country, and they could swap that for freeholding the rest of the ground. So, to be fair, there were 360 or something leasehold properties, I think, that went into it for a start. I think we got down to there might be 60 left or something that haven't done it. Something like that anyway. I'm not dead sure on the figures exactly now. But if you didn't have anything to trade, if you had a property that you used most of it in a grazing license to the top of the hill, and you didn't have anything that you really could give away, it wasn't going to work for you anyway. Some people that had massive places that had a lot of rock and snow and ice and bits and pieces on them, and beech forest, and they had something to trade that they weren't using anyway, and that you couldn't do anything with.
So it's come to an end. In fact, I think it was in May, wasn't it, that it's sort of all done and dusted. Is it needing replacing in some form, or is that just all done and dusted? It's gone?
Well, that was the major thing at the time, and I was involved with it at the time. We said to Eugenie Sage that you must have something, a tool that you can replace it with in some form, because the Crown is always going to want to obtain land that sees valuable, and lessees are always going to trade or do bits and pieces to encourage the conservation estate as well, and everyone else, and they just haven't done anything. They've got the Nature Heritage Fund, but it's a completely separate fund, and from what I gather, they only fund it as they need it.
What is happening in the Mackenzie country then? With I presume that a lot of that is Dock Estate, and do they have the budget to take care of it, to look after it as well as say landholders would, because they're living there on site? It's
a very complex question, and to me, in a roundabout sort of a way, the Department of Conservation aren't land managers. They've got vast areas of conservation, and now especially in the Mackenzie, that through tenure review they've got a lot of. The downside of that is the people that entered tenure review wouldn't have given up half or huge hunks of their properties if they weren't allowed to develop the rest of it, because why would you do that? And now that they've come down and they're starting to, through regional governments and district councils, putting in outstanding natural landscapes and rules around all of these things that you can't, native biodiversity and all these rules that you can't do anything and develop your land. So although you've been through tenure review, you've given the Crown, or you've traded the Crown a huge area that's not been farmed, you've got no option now to develop the rest of it. So it's pretty unfair.
Last week, of course, there was the huge polar blast. We love that word, polar blast. Sounds quite exciting. I don't know, you were well used to it in your neck of the woods. Were you affected badly, or what?
Yeah, Mark, it certainly was cold. We certainly didn't get affected nearly as badly as the people further south that I saw photographs down there and talked to people that had a lot of snow, and they would have been in the middle of lambing, so I felt very sorry for them. More up our way, we'd only just started, maybe that day or a couple of days before, so it really didn't seem to knock us around too much. So.
do the sheep, because that's their country, do they sort of cope with it? Do they find ways of you know, mitigating the snow, if you like?
Yeah, most definitely, and farming practices now, you know, that's why we pre-lamb shear, so that sheep go to, you know, they'll go to shelter when it's cold, and they'll take their lambs there as well. And but it's not so much the rain; it's more wind that'll kill young stock. And as long as there's a bit of a break in it, the lamb can get a feed and get his belly full. And it's amazing what they will.
And today, what's the weather doing for you? You got a nice day out there. Looks like a bit of sunshine.
Beautiful day, Mark. A little bit of quite a heavy dew this morning. No frost, but quite a heavy dew. And no, everything's the grass is starting to grow. And dare and I say it, a wee shower of rain wouldn't go amiss.
Careful what you wish for.
It's the first time I've said that since about May.